Welcome to the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu. Today we are diving deep into a truly radical idea,
Hmm.
one that challenges the way every leader, every entrepreneur, and frankly every curious person thinks about success.
Uh,
We're asking, what if the fastest decision is, often the best one?
right.
Forget all that conventional wisdom that says you need more data, more deliberation, more meetings. We're exploring this powerful hidden mechanism of our immediate unconscious assessments.
That's it, exactly. The mission for this deep dive is to execute a really rapid, high-impact review of Malcolm Gladwell's foundational work, Planck.
The power of thinking without thinking.
Right. And in today's high-speed world, where you might be evaluating a potential hire or a huge acquisition, maybe just a strategic pivot in minutes, understanding this book isn't optional. It's essential.
That's like a shortcut.
It is. It provides a crucial shortcut to navigating all that complexity by showing us how to optimize that initial 2-second window.
And the beauty of this deep dive is that we're using the comprehensive summary from the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu as our blueprint.
Yeah, it's a fantastic guide.
It really is. It extracts those core insights, which lets us focus on the most critical, actionable lessons for all of you operating in these fast-paced, high-stakes fields. We're cutting straight to the essence of rapid cognition and how to manage it.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, so let's unpack this central and, frankly, pretty counterintuitive idea, thinking without thinking. If
Right.
we're going to master the 2-second decision, we have to start with Gladwell's, his central mechanism, which he calls thin slicing.
Thin slicing is absolutely the cornerstone of this entire discussion. It's this almost miraculous ability of our unconscious mind to take a very narrow slice of experience.
Just a few moments.
Few moments, a brief interaction, a quick glance, and from that, extract these profound, startlingly accurate patterns and insights. It sounds a bit like magic, but it's actually the result of, deep training and evolved biology.
So it's crucial then to understand which part of the mind is doing this work. We're not wading into the traditional Freudian unconscious here, right? The one with all the old trauma and repressed memories.
No, not at all. This is something else entirely. Gladwell leans very heavily on the work of psychologist Timothy Wilson, who termed this system the adaptive unconscious.
Okay, the adaptive unconscious.
Yeah, think of it as a highly specialized internal supercomputer that's just constantly running in the background. Silently processing overwhelming amounts of data, comparing it against decades of experience, and then boom, it synthesizes a conclusion in milliseconds. It evolved for survival, to quickly assess if that rustle in the bushes is a threat or just the wind.
So we don't have to consciously think about every single input.
Exactly. It's optimized for speed and for function.
And to move this from theory into something really tangible, you have to start with the most famous case study in the book, the Koros statue. This is where it gets really interesting, because it shows the snap judgment just completely defeating months of methodical analysis.
The Koros is the perfect case study, just
Right.
because of the sheer resources they poured into the conscious analytical side of things.
So what was it, for those who don't know?
So it's a 6.5-foot tall marble statue of a young man, supposedly from ancient Greece, around 530 BC. The J. Paul Getty Museum acquired it in 1986, and they spent 14 long months and a huge amount of money trying to authenticate it.
14 months. And that involved literally everything, right? I mean, geologists on the marble, chemists on the
Patina, everything, every modern scientific tool available. They even found documents that seemed to trace the statue's ownership back for decades. So after all the tests, all the data, the official conclusion was unequivocal. This thing's genuine,
All systems go.
a priceless antiquity. But then they brought in the people who rely on thin slicing.
The art critics, the curators.
Yes, people who had spent their entire lives just looking at, handling, studying genuine ancient artifacts. And what was their consensus?
Immediate doubt.
Immediate intuitive repulsion. They took one look,
Yeah.
a thin slice of experience, and just knew deep down something was fundamentally wrong.
I love that quote from the Italian art historian Federico Zeri. He just said he felt an intuitive repulsion. And another expert, he just kept looking at the fingernails saying, I just can't explain it, but they don't look right.
And that inability to articulate,
Yeah.
that is the hallmark of the adaptive unconscious at work. Those experts' brains, through decades of training, had internalized the patterns of authentic marble ancient carving techniques. All these subtle cues, they processed thousands of them instantly.
And it generated a signal in 2 seconds.
In 2 seconds, that contradicted 14 months of lab analysis. And Spoiler alert. The statue was eventually deemed a likely fake.
The insight for us is it's profound. We're not talking about guessing here. We're talking about highly specialized, unconscious expertise delivering a robust conclusion faster than the conscious mind can even start to build the spreadsheet.
The problem isn't intuition. It's untrained intuition.
Right.
So building on that Koros case, we really need to dig into the science that validates this. Gladwell delves into research that, well, it really maps out the two systems of decision-making. People like Kahneman and Tversky talk about System 1 and System 2.
The slow and fast thinking.
Exactly. Gladwell focuses on the mechanics of that rapid response, and he exemplifies it brilliantly with the Iowa gambling game.
This experiment is so important because it's the scientific proof that the body knows before the mind knows.
It really is. So the researchers set up a simple card game with 4 decks, 2 red, 2 blue. Participants get some virtual money and are told to draw cards to win.
But it's rigged.
It's rigged. The red decks offer high rewards, but also catastrophic losses. The blue decks offer steady, modest gains. So the winning strategy is to avoid the red decks.
And the players don't know this going in.
No idea. They have to figure it out as they play. Now, here's the chronology that just stunned the researchers. Participants could only consciously articulate the winning strategy. I mean, rationally explain, okay, red is bad, blue is good. After they turned over about 80 cards.
80? That's a lot of cards.
That's the slow, deliberate System 1 at work. Assembling data, weighing evidence, forming a conclusion.
So what was happening before the 80-card mark?
Well, the rapid System 2 kicked in much, much sooner. After only 50 cards, most participants started getting a strong hunch that the blue decks were safer.
A hunch?
A feeling. They were favoring blue, even though they couldn't explain why. No justification.
That's a 40-card gap between a feeling and a logical conclusion. But the most amazing part, the real proof, came even earlier.
It did. The researchers were measuring physiological responses. Palm sweat detectors.
Stress detectors.
Exactly. And the finding was just astounding. The moment a participant's hand hovered over one of the dangerous red decks, their palms started sweating. They generated a measurable stress response. And this started happening by the 10th card.
The 10th card. So their bodies were registering danger 70 cards before their minds could even explain the problem.
70 cards. It's almost definitive proof that this pattern recognition system is running completely outside of our awareness.
Wow.
40 cards before conscious hunch, 70 before they could explain it. Their bodies were reacting, adjusting their behavior, warning them.
So for leaders, this means we have to respect those initial nonverbal signals, that moment of hesitation or that discomfort when you meet a potential partner.
Exactly. You have to treat it as a potentially valid data point. The art isn't ignoring data. It's recognizing that the body is often the first messenger of your adaptive unconscious's conclusion.
And this ability, this thin slicing, it isn't limited to just art or card games. One of the most compelling applications Gladwell discusses is the work of John Gottman, who applied it to the ultimate complex outcome, whether a marriage will succeed or fail.
Gottman's marriage lab in Seattle is just a masterpiece of social science. He brought in thousands of couples over decades, videotaped them talking about stressful topics, and then tracked them for 15 years.
And at first, he was all about the meticulous analysis.
Oh, completely. He built the most elaborate System 1 analysis possible. He developed this comprehensive coding system called SESPAF, specific affect, with 20 emotional categories.
That sounds incredibly laborious. I'm just picturing rooms full of analysts tracking every single facial expression, every change in heart rate, every eye roll.
And that's what it was, mountains of data. But the shocking twist was that after all that, Gottman discovered he could predict failure with astonishing accuracy by focusing only on those narrow slices.
He didn't need all the data.
He didn't. The crucial patterns emerged almost immediately. If he analyzed just 1 hour of conversation, he could predict with 95% accuracy whether that couple would still be married 15 years later.
95% from 1 hour.
Right.
That is just stunning. It suggests the fate of the relationship is sort of baked in long before the breakup.
And it gets even more aligned with thin slicing. He found he could cut the observation down to 15 minutes and still be around 90% accurate.
15 minutes?
And even just 3 minutes of focused observation yielded incredibly impressive, actionable results.
Yeah.
It shows that the distinctive signature of that relationship, whether it's healthy or pathological, emerges almost instantly.
So what were the critical variables? What was the 2-second window actually picking up on?
He distilled it down to a few really powerful things. First, just the basic chemistry, the ratio of positive to negative interactions.
Okay.
For a marriage to survive, they needed a minimum 5-to-1 ratio. 5 positive interactions, humor, affection, support, for every single negative one.
Wow, 5-to-1, that's a high bar.
It is. It shows how fragile trust is. But the second, more predictive finding was the presence of what he called the 4 horsemen of the relationship apocalypse.
Defensiveness, stonewalling, criticism, and
the most toxic of all, contempt. Contempt is crucial. It's that sneering, disgusted disdain for your partner, treating them with disrespect. Gottman found it was so corrosive, it didn't just predict relational failure. Its presence alone was shown to compromise the physical immune function of the person receiving it.
It literally made them sick.
Literally. A measurable physical outcome from a brief emotional exchange. A perfect target for thin slicing.
And the relevance for anyone listening, for any leader, is huge. If 3 minutes can predict the failure of a marriage, it means complex outcomes in business, a new partnership, team cohesion, company culture. They also have identifiable thin-sliced patterns.
Exactly. If you know the few critical variables to track, like contempt between co-founders or stonewalling in a leadership meeting, you don't need exhaustive data. You just need focused, expert observation.
And that ability to isolate the signal from the noise is key. The depth of these specific insights, as curated in the 1-Hour Guide by Anil Nathu, it really demonstrates how quickly we can access this high-level expertise, right? It lets us streamline our focus to these critical variables ourselves.
Absolutely. But now we have to turn to the critical warning in the book.
The dark side.
The dark side.
Yeah.
The fact that rapid cognition is not inherently good. When the adaptive unconscious picks up on irrelevant, misleading cues we've learned from culture and society, the snap judgment can lead us catastrophically astray.
This is what Gladwell calls the Warren Harding error.
The Warren Harding error. The danger isn't the speed, it's the quality of the data being processed. Warren Harding, the 29th president, is the perfect example of thin slicing gone wrong.
He was, by most accounts, highly incompetent, but he got elected because he just looked the part.
He was a visual template for competence. Tall, broad-shouldered, handsome, thick silver hair, commanding voice. He looked presidential. And this strong surface impression seduced the unconscious mind of the electorate. It caused them to project qualities onto him. Intelligence, character, capability that he just didn't have.
So that immediate judgment, he looks like a leader, therefore he is a leader, it just overrode any deeper analysis of his actual track record?
And this ties directly into the critical mechanism that allows for the Harding error, implicit bias. Gladwell used the example of the implicit association test, the IAT.
Right, which doesn't measure what you say you believe.
No, it measures how quickly your brain pairs concepts. For example, how quickly you associate positive words with, say, certain racial or gender categories.
And the results are pretty stark.
They're very stark. Over 80% of test takers, including many people from minority groups themselves, show an unconscious pro-white bias.
So the IAT proves that our adaptive unconscious is just. It's a sponge. It's soaking up every cultural message, every stereotype we encounter.
Exactly. Even if we consciously reject racism or sexism, those implicit associations are sitting there in the engine, ready to corrupt our snap judgments.
And the real-world consequences are just immense. I'm thinking of the Chicago car dealership study.
That study is a perfect, quantifiable example of the financial cost of the Harding error.
So they sent people of different races and genders into dealerships.
38 people, all with identical scripts, backgrounds, negotiation training. The only variable was how the dealer thin-sliced them, and the difference in the price they were offered was shocking.
Break down the numbers for us.
Okay. White men received, quotes, averaging about $725 above the dealer's cost. White women paid more. Black women paid even more. But black men received, quotes, averaging a staggering $1,687 above cost.
More than double the markup.
Just because they were implicitly viewed as, what, high risk, less informed.
Yeah.
And that bias was so entrenched that even after 40 minutes of negotiation, black men still paid almost $800 more than white men who hadn't negotiated at all.
That is just, it's a massive, measurable financial discrimination in a routine transaction driven by nothing but a snap judgment.
And the Harding error isn't just about race or gender. It even applies to something as simple as height.
The physical template for success.
Absolutely. The average American man is 5'9". The average male CEO is just under 6 feet tall. And here's the kicker. 58% of Fortune 500 CEOs are 6 feet or taller.
Compared to the, what, 14.5% of the general population?
Exactly. We unconsciously equate physical stature with strategic capability, even though there is zero correlation. So if we don't actively structure our decision-making against these biases, our thin slicing will simply reflect and perpetuate them.
So this raises a fascinating paradox. If rapid cognition is powerful but also prone to this catastrophic bias, and if more data just leads to paralysis, how do we use it correctly?
Right.
And the answer, as Gladwell suggests, seems to be that to enable good spontaneity, you actually need rigid structure and clear rules.
That is the crucial insight. If you want your team, or even your own intuition, to make rapid, accurate decisions under pressure, you have to first create an intentional, simple, and unambiguous framework.
The structure provides the boundaries.
And allows the intuition freedom within those limits. The Millennium Challenge O2 war game is the definitive example of this. A $250 million simulation. The high-tech U.S. forces, the blue team.
Versus the rogue enemy, the red team, led by the brilliant LT General Paul Van Riper.
Right. And the blue team embodied the dangers of analysis paralysis. They had every advantage. Endless real-time data, sophisticated computers, but they were paralyzed by their own assets.
Too much information.
They were just holding meetings, synthesizing intelligence, modeling every contingency. They mistook diligence for agility.
Meanwhile, Van Riper's red team basically destroyed them in minutes, sank 16 American ships.
Because Van Riper understood that speed trumped volume. He empowered his subordinates to make rapid, intuitive decisions based on broad, clear guidance. That was the structure.
And he used low-tech methods.
Forbade radio communications. Used motorcycle couriers, flashing lights. He acted spontaneously. His intuition flourished because he'd eliminated all the clutter.
The lesson for any leader is clear. Complexity paralyzes the conscious mind, but simplicity and clear intent empower the unconscious.
And to clarify that paradox, Gladwell connects it beautifully to improv comedy.
Which seems like pure chaotic spontaneity.
It does. But it operates according to extremely strict, unbending rules.
The primary one being agreement, the concept of yes and. You have to accept whatever your partner introduces.
Exactly. If your partner says, we've landed on the moon and forgotten the cheese, you can't deny that. You have to accept it and build on it.
Yes, and now we must figure out how to transport this new moon cheese.
That rigid rule is what frees the mind.
It frees the improviser's mind from having to micromanage the narrative. They don't waste cognitive energy on planning. They use it all for creativity and rapid, intuitive reaction.
So for leaders, the takeaway is you don't eliminate structure. You create the right structures. Clear intent, simple rules that enable spontaneity by freeing the adaptive unconscious to do what it does best. Which leads directly to another major failing point: information overload. The assumption that more data automatically improves decision quality is, well, it's often just false.
In many cases, it actively degrades the quality. It introduces noise.
We saw this crisis acutely in how ERs used to diagnose chest pain. Traditional medical training demanded this comprehensive analysis. Patient history, smoking, family history, dozens of variables.
They were trying to paint the full picture.
And their accuracy was terrible. Researchers gave identical patient profiles to doctors across the country, and the probability diagnoses for a heart attack ranged from 0 to 100%.
They were guessing.
Essentially, yes. The sheer volume of variables was noise. Every new piece of information just added complexity without predictive power.
It's like a business executive drowning in unnecessary reports.
It's the same cognitive failure. And then in comes Dr. Lee Goldman, a cardiologist, who realized the solution wasn't more data, it was radical editing.
He focused on identifying the critical few variables that really mattered.
He stripped the process down to just the essentials. Evidence from the EKG, plus only 3 urgent risk indicators: unstable angina, fluid in the lungs, and low blood pressure. He ruthlessly ignored dozens of traditional variables.
And the result of that simplification?
Dramatic. Goldman's simple algorithm, based on 4 pieces of data, dramatically outperformed the experienced doctors. The algorithm was 70% better at identifying patients who were not having heart attacks.
Saving time and resources.
Huge resources. And it correctly identified serious cases 95% of the time, compared to 89% for the doctors. The key was editing.
That's a fundamental challenge to the business assumption that more columns in the spreadsheet means better outcomes.
And this interference caused by analysis. It extends beyond just data volume. It goes into our own cognitive processes. Gladwell examines this through the concept of verbal overshadowing.
Where forcing yourself to explain a snap judgment can actually make it less accurate.
Precisely. In one study, people were shown faces and later asked to identify them from a lineup. They were pretty good at it. But if they were first forced to write a detailed verbal description of the face—
the shape of the nose, texture of the skin.
Right. Their recognition accuracy plummeted. Translating the visual memory into language interfered with it. It literally overshadowed the accurate intuitive memory.
And the same thing happened in the famous jam study.
The exact same mechanism. When people just tasted 5 different jams, their rankings correlated accurately with expert ratings. They knew which one was best. But if they were asked to explain their preference first, to justify it with words, their rankings became random.
The act of analysis corrupted the judgment.
It's a critical lesson. Avoid forcing articulation of a strong intuition too early. You can literally destroy the very judgment you're trying to capture. This deep dive, based on the comprehensive summary of the 1-hour guide by Anil Nathu, is itself a testament to focusing only on these critical signals and avoiding all that noise.
Okay, we've established the power, the focus, but now we have to address the ultimate failure point. When does it all just break down?
Right.
Gladwell presents this through the tragic shooting of Amadou Diallo. We're moving from cognitive corruption to physiological breakdown.
This incident was a catastrophic failure of the adaptive unconscious. 4 NYPD officers fired 41 bullets at an unarmed man, mistaking his wallet for a gun. It wasn't primarily a failure of training, it was a breakdown in processing under extreme duress.
What happens to us physiologically when the pressure spikes that high?
Gladwell draws on research showing this critical threshold. When a person's heart rate exceeds 175 beats per minute, cognitive processing literally starts to shut down.
The body's ancient survival mechanism just takes over.
It overrides the sophisticated mind. Your body sacrifices higher reasoning for a primitive fight-or-flight response.
And the effects are, what, tunnel vision?
Profound and debilitating. Classic tunnel vision, yes. Auditory processing shuts down or sound becomes distorted. Fine motor control degrades rapidly, which explains the scattershot nature of the 41 bullets. They were operating on pure reflex.
So in that hyper-aroused state, they weren't capable of the sophisticated pattern recognition needed to tell a wallet from a gun.
They entered a state Gladwell calls a kind of temporary autism. They lost their ability to read subtle social cues, to mind read. The combination of high arousal, the dark environment, and pre-existing unconscious associations. It all corrupted their perception.
And the failure just cascades. Once one officer fires, the others interpret that as confirmation of a threat.
It's a synchronized, collective snap judgment failure. Yeah. And this is the critical lesson for any leader facing high-stakes ambiguity. Rapid cognition fails when stress and time constraints push us beyond our optimal range.
So you have to structure those situations to keep people below that 175 BPM threshold.
Exactly. You create structural pauses. Gladwell notes the example of police departments banning high-speed chases.
Forcing officers to back off, disengage.
It creates space. A moment for the adaptive unconscious to function optimally instead of panicking. It dramatically reduced accidents and excessive force, proving that slowing down the reaction in high-stakes moments often leads to a better, more accurate snap judgment.
Okay, so we've covered the power, the pitfalls, the physiology. Let's synthesize the actionable principles, the specific takeaways for business and leadership that allow us to harness this effectively.
Right, and these 10 points, drawn from our source, provide a really solid roadmap for managing and optimizing rapid cognition.
Let's start with lesson 1. Trust educated intuition, but know its limits. This is about knowing when your gut is based on experience versus when it's just a prejudice.
It's only reliable when built upon genuine contextual expertise. If you've spent 20 years in venture capital, your gut feeling about a founder might be highly valuable. But if you're evaluating a new tech in a field you just entered, your gut is probably just reflecting the Warren Harding error.
Build the expertise first.
Without that library of patterns, your intuition is just guesswork.
Okay, lesson 2. Create conditions for good snap judgments. How do we architect decisions to remove those biasing factors?
By implementing structural audition screens. The classic example is orchestras using screens for auditions, which dramatically increased the hiring of qualified female musicians.
Because it forced the panel to focus only on performance.
Exactly. Structure your hiring, investment, or promotion reviews to eliminate irrelevant visual or demographic cues. Force the unconscious to focus only on the essential data.
Lesson 3. Recognize that more information isn't always better. This is a hard one. It goes against the culture of diligence.
This is the Goldman algorithm lesson. Leaders must have the discipline to identify the critical few variables that truly predict success and then ruthlessly ignore the rest. Editing information is often the most courageous and effective strategy.
Lesson 4. Slow down high-stakes moments. This is about counteracting that 175 BPM reaction point.
If you are approaching crisis-level stress, you are cognitively impaired. Build in a brief, structured pause, even if it's just 5 minutes. A mandatory review period prevents that immediate, reflexive reaction and allows for a better snap judgment instead of a panic response.
Lesson 5. Beware of the Warren Harding error. Use organizational guardrails to fight implicit bias.
Structured interviews with standardized questions are proven to be better predictors than unstructured chats that just reward charisma. Blind resume reviews, diverse panels, these things help neutralize unconscious associations.
Lesson 6. Distinguish problem types. Knowing when to use analysis versus when to trust insight.
Right. Some challenges need methodical analysis. Others require sudden insight, like a creative breakthrough. Don't try to force a spreadsheet onto an insight problem. Insight often requires immersion, then stepping back and letting the unconscious mind work in the background.
Lesson 7. Practice thin slicing, so it's a trainable skill.
Absolutely. Just like wine tasters or radiologists develop pattern recognition through systematic practice, you can improve your intuitive accuracy. Systematically study past successes and failures in your field and seek rapid feedback on your SNAP assessments.
Lesson 8. Don't force explanations prematurely. The verbal overshadowing rule.
When you have a strong, accurate intuition, act on it if you can, but avoid the impulse to immediately justify it with words. You can corrupt the insight. Capture the judgment, act on it, then analyze the outcome afterward.
Lesson 9. Use market research appropriately, so recognizing the difference between optimizing and innovating.
Market research is great for incremental improvements. Should we make the blue widget a darker blue? But it fails spectacularly for genuinely novel products, like the Aeron chair, which tested poorly because people had no frame of reference. For innovation, prioritize expert judgment and observe actual behavior.
And finally, Lesson 10. Build margin for error, creating organizational white space.
This means having the cash reserves, the buffer time, the backup suppliers that prevent desperation. Organizational desperation equals high stress, and high stress compromises rapid cognition. Margin allows you to maintain controlled, strategic judgment.
These 10 takeaways really provide a comprehensive roadmap for managing your most powerful cognitive tool, and they're all condensed from the extensive work summarized in the 1-Hour Guide by Anil Nathu, which just gives you this immediate, usable access.
And with that, we've reached the conclusion of our summary of Gladwell's Blink, a deep dive guided by the concise and strategic framework of the 1-Hour Guide by Anil Nathu.
What Gladwell ultimately delivers is an optimistic message, but it's also a call for greater intellectual humility. The 2-second window isn't magic. It's highly sophisticated processing that we have to manage like any other asset. Mastery lies in understanding when to use intuition versus analysis and creating structures that enable both without letting them interfere with each other.
The ability to act decisively, to spot patterns others miss. That's the true competitive advantage. The most successful leaders aren't the ones who discard data, nor those who discard their gut. They're the ones who practice the delicate art of listening with their eyes, learning to distinguish the signal of genuine quality from the noise of irrelevant characteristics.
So a final thought for you to take away. Think about a recent high-stakes decision you made. Did you rely primarily on methodical analysis or on instantaneous instinct? And what critical piece of predictive data did you perhaps ignore in favor of just accumulating more information?
Thank you for joining us today. Buy the book at the 1-Hour Guide website for more business insights.